Listeners, we are going to get to intros, but before we do that, Ian, tell me something that you believe about real estate that might surprise listeners.
It's not passive. The government says it's passive. They tax it passive. Everybody tells you it's passive. It's super easy, but it's not. And I'm happy to discuss that one further.
Listeners, welcome to the Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we talk to the experts in commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and use real estate to live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek. I'm a former public school teacher who found financial freedom through residential real estate investing, and now I invest in commercial properties, particularly small industrial properties. Today, I am talking with Ian Horowitz with Equity Warehouse. Ian, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Good. We were just talking about how I was scarfing down lunch before I recorded this podcast. So it doesn't matter what time of day it is that you're listening to this. I'm probably still scarfing down my lunch. So I'm excited to be on and let's do this.
I am glad you are coming into this interview well fed and nourished. Ian, why don't we start out with you telling us about your background, how you got started in real estate, and what your work looks like today?
Yeah, I'll actually start with the latter. And what our work looks like today is self-storage, and multifamily is really what we concentrate on heavily. And self-storage is everything from self-storage to contractor storage. That's really what we enjoy, along with multifamily. But we took a very long journey to get there. If you take it all the way back before we even founded Equity Warehouse, it was my business partner and myself. We were both firemen for the city of Baltimore. We wanted to be big city firemen. Grew up outside of Philadelphia. Working in Philadelphia wasn't a possibility just based on the fact that you had to live there. So we started testing, us and a bunch of friends started testing all over the country. Well, coincidentally, a bunch of us end up in Baltimore, and we get hired in the financial crisis. It's like, oh, great timing. We take a government job. We have security. We're doing the job that we love. At the core root of it, we love helping people. That is the core root of being a fireman. You're in some of the worst situations, and people actually want you there. I love our police officers, but I hate to tell you, I don't care where you are. They don't want you there because they always feel like they're getting trouble. We're there to help, and they love us. But in '07 and '08, by the end of '09, we're getting furloughed. We're getting our pension changed. We're getting our schedule changed. Obamacare comes out. Everyone's health care goes up. And it's like, bro, like I just traded in all these insecurities for security to then have the same insecurities. They were talking about laying us off. And I said, dude, there's got to be a different way. And we started buying single family real estate. The short version is we kind of join up. We buy single family real estate and we take a 10-year trajectory and grinding out single family. We end up in commercial, and it's been the most life-changing thing that we ever done. We were able to quit our jobs a few years ago early, which most people don't do. I mean, a public school teacher, people don't quit their job. Firemen don't quit their job. Police officers don't do that. And when we did that, it was an eye-opening experience for everyone on what we're doing and how we grew our portfolio.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. When you're a public service worker, like police officer, fireman, teacher, if you stick with it long enough, you get a pension. And so most people will tell you just stick it out, just put in your 30 years or whatever it is, stick it out, and you get a pension. And then you're set for life. But I had a really similar path as you. I was a teacher for 8 years, and I realized like I just can't stick it out for 30 years or 35 years for the pension. That's my life that we're talking about. And so was there, I mean, you talked about some inflection points of things changing, and you exchanged, some insecurity for what you thought was security. And, then that changed. Were there any other inflection points where you're like, man, I love firefighting, but I can't do this full time for the rest of my working life?
Yeah, there was a few things. I mean, there were some external factors besides what was going on in the government agencies, right? You had pension systems going bankrupt all across this country. Detroit, California, you name it, they're going bankrupt. Then you got your wife, soon to be, and or was my wife at the time. Hey, we're about to turn 30. I want kids. I'm like, wait, time out. Like, we're just starting to figure out life. And I was like, well, I don't want my kids to have to go to daycare. Like, the thought of paying that was just insane. But in the back of my mind, it was, um, I can get killed on the job. I can get incapacitated in the job. How do I protect my family? God forbid that happens to me. And yeah, owning a business is cool, but I can't imagine like something happened to me and then tell my wife, hey, you got to go manage the guys to go do all these landscape jobs versus saying, hey, here's these properties. All you got to do is hand them to this property manager, and then you'll get cash flow, and then you can decide to sell them. God forbid I'm not here. That will protect you and the girls forever, whether I'm here or not. And those things started to weigh on me heavily. And firefighting is a young man's game. I'm not old by any means. I mean, I just turned 41. We left a few years ago before we were 40. I don't care what anyone says. Young man's game, dude. Like, you got to get out there. You get your butt whooped. And the thought of just doing 30, 40, it's watching these guys doing 50 years. I worked with a lieutenant who worked in both riots. Like, I worked in Baltimore City. So you ever watch The Wire, that's where I worked. When the riots happened, that's where I worked. Like, we were in the heart of it. And that man worked both riots. He worked them in the late 60s and the mid, teens of the 2000s. And I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? Like, that is no quality life. And also seeing the other guys, I don't know how many teachers do this. This is my favorite one. Hey, you're retiring. Cool, you did 30 years. What are you going to go travel the country, go enjoy life? No, man, I'm going to get my pension, and then I'm going to go get a job at Home Depot. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, well, I can't afford to retire. I'm like, so you work all these years to then retire to then go get another job. I'm out. And those things, I think, all weighed on us and really forced our hand to go out and figure it out and do something bigger and better for ourselves.
Will you tell me about you and your partners, your first foray into real estate? What were those first few deals like?
Yeah, so for me, I took a trajectory of buying rental properties first because, like everything I just said, it's I wanted to leave legacy to my family. God forbid something happened to me. I wanted that cash flow. I like the little drips of cash. My business partner likes big sums of cash. And for me, it was, all right, well, how can I make money while I'm asleep at work? Well, I can buy a piece of rental real estate. They're there all year round. Sign me up, pay me. So my first deal was $25,000. I mean, my credit score was like next to nothing. I don't ask why I have debt, but I had 15,000 in the bank. I did. I took that 15 grand, bought that first house on a hard money loan at like, dude, 15 and 5 or 16 and 6, some insane hard money rate. I had no clue what I was doing, but I did it. I went out there, busted my ass, and I got $1,250 rent on like a $50,000 to $60,000 investment. And look, I understand. I have no clue what I actually was into the property for, but I think it was about 50, 60 grand. I'm getting 1250 rent, and that $600 a month cash flow was like, excuse my French, like literally like crack. I was like, dude, I need more. This is amazing. That's a 2 overtime shifts for me. And my business partner got jammed up in the financial crisis, so he starts wholesaling 20, 30, $40,000 clips. He gets a package of 4 houses and says, "Hey man, I want to wholesale these and I want to do a flip on one of these." And I said, "Oh, I'm in." And the reason he came to me was because he had 2 properties that were rented out to tenants, and he knew that I had some buyers that would buy them turnkey. So we sold them off, flipped that house, made 6 figures, and we never looked back. 2014, we formalized our business, and that was it. But dude, we had no sophistication, no understanding. I didn't know that 2012 is the absolute bottom. Like I'm not that smart. But what we did is that time frame allowed us to make a lot of mistakes, to ride the wave up, to allow us to learn how to grow our business and put us in some good positions. So that was a really exciting time to get involved in real estate, but had no clue that it was the exact right time to get involved.
Will you tell me about Equity Warehouse today? I know you're focused on multifamily and self-storage. I assume you still have some deals from those earlier years. Will you tell me about what your portfolio looks like, however you want, in terms of value or doors or whatever, and what your team looks like?
Yeah, so the best way to frame it up is we're just opportunistic investors, and 2 dumb firemen from that worked in Baltimore City aggregated a little over $70 million of real estate. Well, how do we do that? We grinded single family houses. We built a 100-house single family portfolio. We just grinded it out. Then we started dabbling into some small multifamily, some small industrial. Again, figured it out. And then we grew into self-storage and multifamily on a more sophisticated level with capital investors co-investing with us, co-lending to us, and growing that. So we concentrate on self-storage and multifamily, and it's value add deals. Our value proposition to our capital investors, who are all firemen, teachers, nurses, like military, that's our wheelhouse. Like, we're bringing opportunities that blue collar type people don't get an opportunity to invest in. And that's really important to us. So we're looking for those value add deals that we can apply our expertise of construction to, and stabilize them. So, what does it look like? It's just an eclectic collection of properties that we enjoy. We have Airbnbs, we have single family real estate, we have industrial real estate, we have office space, we have multifamily, we have storage. And people would say, well, that's wrong. But to us, it's right, because we know what we know at the time. And when the opportunities present themselves, we have the ability to execute them, because in all those early days of refining single family real estate and learning our process, hiring employees, grinding it out, it allowed us to just turn this into, give us the widget and we'll give you a cog out the bottom. And today we have roughly 15 employees. Most of them are stateside. We do have a few overseas that handle some accounting and social media stuff for us, but the majority of our teams over here. We have Ryan, who runs our operation. He started out as a contractor for us, converted into a project manager, he's promoted all the way to running the whole company. He was employee number one. He's still with us today. We have another project manager. We have some office admins. We have boots on the ground. We have a call center, and we have maintenance guys. And that's really what it is. We try to live and breathe Sam Zell's method of owning a lot of real estate with a small team and relying on third party management vendors. We've always self managed, but we're working on grinding out what we do really good and passing off that management piece to the right operators. And that, again, that comes back to buying the right assets to be able to do that.
I love your trajectory of today, clearly focusing on larger deals in multifamily and self storage, and it sounds like being opportunistic as other things arise. How I'm I'm interested in, because there's a lot of pressure on social media and masterminds and coaching programs to start big, to do big deals, and to not mess around with those smaller deals. You really cut your teeth on a lot of small deals, on those single families and Airbnbs and things like that. How do you view those earlier, smaller deals? Do you view it as a waste of time and you should have gone bigger faster, or do you see value in those earlier, smaller deals?
Uh, I think that's where we cut our teeth. I couldn't imagine. First off, the ability to have someone invest in us early on, there's no way. Side by side with that, what I would say is it minimalized our risk, right? I don't think I could have tolerated, nor did I have the maturity level to go out and buy a $5 million piece of property. And I think it really came to fruition the first time. Like, we always had people just kind of give us capital here and there, like, hey, let me give you a few bucks. We would put it in, then we would leverage it, then we would refinance it, give them their money back. Cool. Then we had an opportunity to buy a 76 unit apartment building, and that was the deal that literally changed our lives, right? We had to raise $1 million. I said, all right, I got to know 40 people that are willing to give us $25,000, but we were still firemen. And I don't think people took us seriously and understood really what we're doing. We're trying to buy a $5 million asset. We only need $1 million to get into this. It's a sweetheart deal. And when I went out there and did that, all that experience of building single family real estate, doing the small commercial deals, doing the small multifamily deals, I was relying on that. And I had to work really, 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 really hard to go raise that capital for that deal. But I'll tell you what, once we did that deal, the floodgates open. And again, it goes back to, I could never get to that point if I didn't do these other deals. I do believe people, not me, have the maturity level to step right into commercial real estate day one. But generally speaking, they have a little bit of a different background than where I come from. And I don't want to call it a regret, but I agree with you. And I would say, I wish we went bigger earlier, But then again, we didn't know what we didn't know at that time to even make that decision to say, well, we're not doing it right. Money was easy from 2016 to 19. We didn't know any better. Hey, bank, we want to buy a bunch of single family houses. Cool. Here's a bunch of money. There was no questions asked. And we never even thought to say, well, let's apply that to bigger deals. And once we did, then we realized the benefit of it. And again, our first big deal was a small deal, relatively speaking, that allowed us to then do bigger deals. I mean, our biggest deal to date is like 15 million bucks. It's all relative, but we know our wheelhouse now, where we're comfortable, where we want to live, and what we want to operate in.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said. I think those early deals are so important for learning those important lessons. And in hindsight, it's really easy to say, "Oh, I should have gone bigger sooner." And even I'm not doing huge deals right now. $1 million deal is a good sized deal for me. But like 6 years ago, when I'm still teaching, like, could I have taken down $1 million deal? No way. I mean, I didn't have the sophistication. I couldn't have raised the capital. I wouldn't have known a good deal, at that price point. And so, yeah, I really feel like you got to learn your lessons on those small deals. If you're coming from a totally non-business sector like you and I are, if you're, an investment banker or something looking to go out on your own, the different rules apply to you. But teachers and firefighters and non-business people, those small deals are super valuable. So,
Well,
Ian,
I mean,
yeah, please go ahead.
sorry, just real quick is like people don't have the operating system. Like you just said, if you're coming from the business world, you might have an idea of, well, okay, well, I have an admin in my office and I can have that person help me out with this project versus coming from nothing. And this isn't a comparison and be like, oh, we did it better or we had a harder time. It's just, it is what it is. And I wouldn't even know how to talk to a property manager at that time in my career to be like, hey man, like, how's this work? I couldn't even imagine picking up the phone with the banker and being like, can you explain to me like what a 10-year treasury is? Like these are all things that we had to learn by navigating these smaller deals. And it's like, well, all right, bank's giving us Wall Street Journal plus whatever. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then you start seeing that creep up. And you're like, well, that's not good. And then you start talking to other bankers, like, oh, you should have done the treasury, or you should have done this. And you're like, well, I didn't know any of this. I still don't even know what SOFR is, but everybody compares it to SOFR, right? And it's like, at least I can talk the lingo and understand it now. I just couldn't do it then, and that's where you need to build your systems long term, and you need to cut your teeth in deals that you're comfortable with, deal size, and it's just relative. $1 million to you is a big deal, and a $20 million deal to me is big. However, my comfort level where we love to operate, 1 to 5 million bucks, really easy to raise capital for, really easy to get debt for, very easy to comprehend, understand, and I don't feel like there's a lot of risk. I start getting over that $5 million, and look, we went for it. We did 13 million bucks. When I went over that threshold, I got real uncomfortable. Yes, it launched us to a new pad from a balance sheet, from a capital investor, and all those other fun things. But there's a lot of stinking risks in that. And I don't know that going forward, unless the deal is really juicy, we want to do that. $1 to $5 million wheelhouse. We love it and go from there. So
I love that. Knowing your wheelhouse, knowing your buy box, and knowing where you and your team are going to be successful. Will you talk about how your role specifically has evolved over time? I imagine in the early days of Equity Warehouse, you were doing everything. You and your partner were probably running around like crazy doing everything. Will you talk about those days compared to today? What does your role in Equity Warehouse look like today?
well, today, you can see if you guys are watching this on video, I got real uncomfortable because I am officially the face of the company. I have no clue how that happens, but it is what it is. But dude, the days of Baltimore, we have the Beltway. There's the Capital Beltway that surrounds DC, and then there's the Baltimore Beltway. They both suck equally. But back in the day, me and Dan, when we were flipping houses and building that single family portfolio, we would lap the Beltway every single day, navigating traffic, going out, paying contractors on site, walking properties. Then we hire Ryan. And there was I don't want to say like a power struggle, but it was like, oh shit, like, now what? It's like eerily quiet. A lot of people talk about you can't sit with the silence. It's like, well, like, all right, well, let me start working on taxes. Let me start working on financing. Let's start building our back end processes. And it allowed us that we never realized like the things you're missing when you're out there in the streets every day. And then you get in the office and you take for granted, like, dude, I mean, there were some long nights. I remember we rebuilt all of our books to get onto QuickBooks from the day we opened our company. It was the night that Donald Trump got elected. I'm not making this political, but the night Donald Trump gets elected in 2016, me and Dan were up literally till 3 a.m. rebuilding our company all the way back to 2014. So we had all the data in there, and we didn't know why we were doing it, other than it just felt like the right exercise to do. And then that turns into, all right, now I'm just working on deal flow. Dan works on operations with Ryan. Now Ryan's only working on operations. Dan's doing accounting. I'm doing all the marketing and underwriting of deals and talking to capital investors. And it's just real interesting to see how our roles have changed. And you never realize how much you are doing and or not doing until you hire someone. And I would say a regret of ours is not hiring earlier. I'm glad we waited till we did when we did, because we got Ryan came on board with us. But dude, we paid him $60,000. We were making like 58,000 in the fire department. I'm like, dude, I'm paying this guy more than what I make, and he gets a truck and fuel and all. I'm like, what is going like? And it was so scary to us. But I'll tell you what, number one hire, and we made a really good hire. And I don't know where we would be today without someone that has the same mental mindset of us. And it truly changed the trajectory. And now he sits in. He's a partner on deals. We issue him shares on syndications that we're doing. So he's a part owner of this company now, and he gets to enjoy the ups and the downs and the sides and the rights. But he's texting us at 10:30 at night. Yo, did you see this? Hey, did you see that? First thing in the morning. And we don't micromanage, but he just keeps us informed. He's in tune. Like, hey, why don't we try X, Y, and Z? And that's really what it comes down to. We believe that all of our employees, and I know I went off on a tangent, but I do enjoy this because more people do need to hire, and I wish we did it sooner, is we treat all of our employees. I don't care if you're a boots on the ground, a maintenance guy, a call center person, or you're number one in charge. You're an entrepreneur in our minds. Nobody's ever going to micromanage you. You know what your role, your job, your tasks are. Show up and do them. And as long as your work's getting done, we will never be upset. But don't abuse it either, right? And giving people the freedom to operate and getting comfortable with knowing that people aren't going to do it the exact way you're going to do it, but the task still gets done. That's what's important, and that's the hardest thing to learn as a business owner and relinquishing control.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm sure listeners are hearing this saying, okay, I would love to have a Ryan. I've tried it. I've tried finding VAs. I've tried hiring, and it's always a disaster. It sounds like the first person you hired turns out to be this absolute rock star. So what suggestions do you have for people for finding their Ryan, someone that can come on board and be an integral part of that team?
Yeah, we really like the DISC personality test. And, for employees, I would actually physically make them take the test, but you can apply that skill set everywhere in your business. Capital investors, I look at people, I'm like, all right, they're a D and an I. Like, they're just going to talk me to death, and they're never going to invest. They're a D and an S. They want to support. I'll show you, trust to verify. I want 100 grand. Give me 25. Let me perform for you. Next, the floodgates open. So that's for that. Vendors, tenants, like everywhere along the board, you can use a DISC personality test. Other than that, I'll tell you, I know a lot of people say don't hire friends, people that all that other crap. We've had the best luck utilizing our own internal network of finding people. Ryan was a converted contractor. We recognize the fact that he was looking for stability. His brother wanted to continue the business, who actually works with us today. He wanted to continue the business. Ryan wanted stability. Hey, Ryan, you interested in working? Cool. And it worked. Look, lucky for us, it worked out. I know it could have been a really hard conversation, but you know what? We were willing to take that risk. And if you never stick yourself out there, you'll never know. But I'll tell you what, most of our employees have come from some sort of referral base that has worked out really, really well for us. And if you keep hiring wrong, at some point you got to stop and say, is it me? It can't be everybody else. Are you not communicating what you need? Like, you're a school teacher. It's so hard to teach. It is very stinking hard to teach. And I know at a certain point you just had to teach and pray to God everyone picks it up. But when you're teaching someone a task, it's going to take you 5 times as long to teach that person to do that one task. If it's a 10-minute task, it's going to take you an hour to teach them. Or if it's an hour task, think about it, it's going to 5 hours. Or your whole 40-hour work week, it's going to take you several months to get this person on board to understand who and what you are. And I think we recognize that early on to say, hey, man, we're not going to micromanage you. Here's the end goal. Do it how you're going to do it. And then come back and say, hey, Rai, like, what about X, Y, and Z? Like, maybe we could streamline this process and inserting yourself and really becoming a manager and not the doer. And I think a lot of people can't let it go because they feel like it's theirs.
I want to ask you about your relationship with your partner, Dan. Um, so many partnerships don't stand the test of time. It sounds good at the start, but it just doesn't work out in the long run. So, any tips or suggestions you have for people in selecting a partner and maintaining a quality partnership over time?
Yeah, transparency and honesty. That goes without being said. But honestly, like we've had like one blowout fight, and that was it. Maybe one other time we've raised voices at each other, but it's we grew up together. I've known his wife since like we were yay big. He's known my wife same yay big, and common goals, common kids, common everything. We've had business partners that have not had the same common goals, and those things have gone down in a blaze of glory. With that being said, again, it goes back to the DISC personality test. If you're out physically searching for a partner and you're a D and an I, which I am, you need someone who is a D and an S or a D and a C to reel you in. So what's great is Dan would literally just do one deal and that's it. And be like, all right, I did my one deal for the year. I made my money. I'll budget and live off whatever, 50 grand for the year. I'm like, yo, dude, how do we make 550 grand a year? Right? Like, I want the bigger thing. So what happens is I'm always pushing Dan to do more. Dan's always reeling me back in, and we end up in this balancing act. He loves paying the bills, accounting, budgeting. I hate it with a passion, right? Like, I wish he would do my personal budgets. I hate it so much. Then, on the same sense, I'm like, yo, Dan, we need to go buy this $13 million deal. Oh, no way, no way, no way. Dan, we need to do it. Hey, man, we need to start planning for projects for the next year because we don't have anything in the pipeline. Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I'm like, dude, these things take time. And our opposites truly attract. It's just like being married, anything. Everybody knows breakdown in communication is the number one issue for failure in relationships. I don't care if you're married, business partner, vendors, whatever it is, that breakdown in communication is what ruins it. And making sure that I would say so transparency, communication, having similar goals, right? Similar age in life, most likely similar goals. And really, again, go back to that DISC personality test, finding the people who can help you with your weaknesses, whether it's a partner and or employee.
I want to ask you a specific question about what you're experiencing on the ground right now with the deals that you're doing and refinancing and buying. So specifically the debt markets and capital markets. What are you experiencing when you're trying to get financing on deals or trying to refinance deals? What's it like for you right now?
Oh, I came on the podcast, so you give me the answers. No, I mean, dude, it's tough, right? Like, what I would say is right now is we're finally seeing some stability. Even though rates are higher, we can all start to predict to say, okay, on the 10-year treasury, I can expect X. And on this rate, I can expect Y. Cool. I can go underwrite deals and predict. When you're underwriting deals and then the metrics change at the last minute because debt quotes are so out of whack, it's impossible. So what we're seeing is the last 2 or 3 times I've called to get 10-year money or find out what money is, the 10-year, the 3-year, and the 5-year are all the same. Okay, let's take the shortest term and try to risk this one out because we think they're going to come down. Okay, cool. On the refinance, I can't say that cash outs, unless you bought really, really well, are going good. We haven't had a quote unquote, what I think everyone's coined the phrase cash in. We have not had that yet. Luckily, knock on wood. And more importantly, like from a buy standpoint and a sell standpoint, there's pent up demand in this market and people want to deploy capital. They're just trying to figure out how. And sellers need to be realistic and buyers need to be realistic side by side with that. The days of 3% capital, I guess we're official old heads now to be like, we can say we remember when, but I don't know if that comes back. You can only do the best deal that's presented to you at the time that you're going to do the deal. And if the markets are quote unquote this effed up today, they're only going to get better. Like if they get better, okay, let's think about that. They're not only going to get better. If they get better, the deal you bought today is only going to get exponentially better. And if they get worse, hopefully you bought right, that you can tolerate what happens and navigate that going forward. So with that being said, I mean, we're active buyers in the market. We have 4 or 5 deals that we're actively working on, a few ground ups, and a couple existing value adds. And on the sell side, we're actually selling a few deals, and we've had to readjust expectations. Never in a million years would I tell you that I was going to hold paper for someone, but I'm comfortable enough foreclosing from the second position. God forbid something goes wrong, and I want a few more dollars. I'm willing to navigate this. Hey, I'll hold back 10%. On a $20 million sale, it's a big nut, right? But there's also a big profit margin, and I'm getting the majority of my money, and I'm producing additional cash flow for our capital investors going forward. So with that being said, like again, it's a bid sell game. I'm not a stock market guy, but expectations on both sides of the playing field are starting to level out. Banks are starting to level out. Debt is more likely to go up than it is to go down. But I would not be underwriting to say stuff in 3 years. Debt's going to go down to 4%. Things are changing in real time, and staying in tune with the market's the best thing you can do.
Talk about passive investor sentiment. You're raising capital for your deals. I imagine there are some challenges there. Will you talk about some of the conversations that you're having with potential passive investors, current passive investors? What are they thinking? What are they fearing? How is it raising capital right now for you?
Yeah, I mean, the conversation always is when you get into a deal with us, we might own this forever. Again, that's best case scenario. Worst case scenario is that we have to sell and make a bunch of money in 5 years. We set the expectation up front that we may own these things for a very long period of time. Some of it is dictated by the market. Some of it is dictated by the fact that we're doing really well on the property, and some of it is, hey, like you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we've been so with capital investors, we set that expectation up front. We tell them where we're at in the portfolio. We tell them, we try to set that expectation up front. Capital raising, look, it's hard. It's always hard. It seemed to be easier during the COVID times because everybody was home with nothing to do. And as sad as that was, it is what it is. But people had what they felt like was extra cash because they're not driving to work every day. They're getting unforeseen money. They're doing whatever. And okay, fine. So they're not eating out as much or whatever it is. They have more money. So more investments were popping up. Today, I would say it's equally as hard to get money. It comes down to reputation. It comes down to expectations that you set. And it's just, again, it goes back to finding a business partner. It's communicating. They are our business partners. We don't call them LPs and GPs. You're our co-investor or you're our co-lender. You are in the game with us. And we want you to, while we might not be the best, I'm not like a weekly updater of like, hey, this exact thing happened. Again, it goes back to that micromanagement conversation. But in the same sense, if you want to know anything, we're happy to tell you. And we just set that expectation up front. Don't expect weekly emails from us. It's not going to happen. But what you can expect is your preferred return to show up in your pocket and any profit distributions that come out. And I think operators, again, that can withstand and raise private capital right now are going to be in a better position, not only in this market, any market going forward. Good markets, bad markets, does not matter. If you have access to capital and can get deals done, you're always a prized possession in the marketplace.
Ian, as we get to the tail end of our conversation, I have a few more questions. They're designed to be more rapid fire style questions, but if you've got a great story or anecdote to share, feel free to take your time. So first up, what's the biggest challenge you're experiencing in your business right now?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, honestly, has been retracting rates, not only in the self storage, but the multifamily space. We saw super high rates, they're retracting, but they're just balancing out, again, another stock term, the resistance line of like 2019, 2020, exactly where we should have been. Things are starting to balance out and it's becoming more predictable. But I would say that's been the biggest challenge, is swallowing that pill of retracting rates.
Are there any habits or daily practices that contribute to your personal or business success?
Yeah, for me is I got to get up. I have to get up and I have to work for 4 hours a day. I have to. If I don't get my 4 hours of work, I don't care if it's 6 to 10, 8 to 12. If I don't get that in my day, I am destroyed. I'm ruined. I feel like a failure. That's my personal issue. That's what works for me. My business partner, don't talk to him until 7 p.m. at night. I'm done, mentally toast, but that's when he wants to have the conversations. But we know if either of us call in our work times, we know we got to answer the phone. So just kind of figure out what the best time of day that you operate the best at.
If you could 10x a certain part of your business, what would it be and why?
If I could 10x a part of my business, what would it be and why? That's a stall tactics until I figure out a really good answer because there's so many things. But I would say it's our team. I would love to 10x our team. If I could reproduce every employee that works with us, it'd just be, the growth would be insane. We would find the capital, we would find the deals to continue to support what they want to do.
What's the best deal you've ever done and why was it the best deal?
The best deal the best deal we ever did was that 76 unit apartment building. And we had written a book on what we were doing. She reached out, said, "Hey, I see you're marketing your book. I have this deal. I want to sell you a $5 million asset. I want to owner finance 90% of it. And then little did we know we'll become your biggest capital investor going forward after you refinance me out." And I said, "Well, there's no way." And we wound up cashing out multi seven figures on a refinance. And today she's our biggest capital investor. And it's become an amazing relationship, and it's one of the best deals we've ever done. And it was scary in real time, but looking back on it, it shouldn't have been that scary.
What's the worst deal you've ever done and why was it the worst deal?
The worst deal we ever done, we recently just sold. We bought a 47 unit multifamily property in Baltimore. It was on a main road. It was actually in bankruptcy for all through COVID. So this thing sat just being misrun for 4 years. The benefit is we gained a great employee. The bad news is we were up against the wall, and we were city firemen, big tough guys. We'll go in there and push and bully these guys out. Started doing that. One of the tenants lit the building on fire. Now, mind you, this is not in the war zone. This is in, like, Baltimore County is 2 blocks away. Like, we're in a good area. One of the tenants decided to light the building on fire. We got our insurance proceeds, broke even, and we said, you know what? Those days are behind us. We have enough gray hair, missing enough hair on top of our heads. I think it's time to sell and get out and move on. So it's probably a little bit of a cop out because there was a lot of goods, but it was one of the roughest, dumbest deals we've done in a long time.
What's your best tip for raising capital and working with high net worth people right now?
Best tip for raising capital would be just to be honest, open, and transparent with your capital investors. I don't care if they have $10 billion or they have $10,000 to invest with you. You treat them all the same, and identifying them from a DISC personality test without making them take the DISC personality test, you'll be at a competitive advantage and know what makes them move to get them to invest with you.
What's your top tip for finding deals right
Oh
now?
no, frozen. You there?
Yep. How about now?
Yeah, sorry. What was that last
Okay.
question?
Yep. What's your top tip for finding deals right now?
For me, it's always been the broker network. I've always loved the broker network. If you can't tell, relationships is what I love. Building relationships with brokers, letting them know what you're doing. To me, that's always the best place to find deals. I look at them this way. I won't use those bad words, but they're looking for money. They're holding what we want. They're in the way of it. They want to get paid equally as much as we want the deal, and the seller wants to sell it, and they're navigating that. So that's why I love brokers. I love building those relationships. They're long-standing friendships, business relationships that I can count on going forward. Off-market deals, to me, I know I'm getting a little elaborate here, but you got to start and stop that relationship and rapport every single time. Whereas the broker knows if I call Ian, he's going to get a deal done if he likes this deal. So let me call him, and that's what I want to be to people, and it's worked out well for us.
Ian, this has been an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. Last question. If listeners want to connect with you, learn more about you and Equity Warehouse, where would you like to send them?
Yeah, go to equitywarehouse.com. You can check out case studies of how we co-invest and co-lend with our friends and family, military, fire, police. And if you want to communicate with me, the best place is Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time, under equity_warehouse. But we're on all the social sites. You can find us. But if you actually want to talk to me, Equity Warehouse on Instagram is the best place to track me down. I will respond. Might take a few days, but I will respond.
He is Ian Horowitz, and his business is Equity Warehouse. Ian, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Loved it.
Listeners, we appreciate you so much. If you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We love talking about commercial real estate, and we would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, take care.